Uh, Now, I'd like to request Dr. Nirmal Mani Adhikari, the Associate Professor of Kathmandu University, to share his thoughts on the session entitled.
Namo Sabhabhya Sabhapatibhyascha. Namaskar. Namaskar. First of all, I appreciate the organizer and the co-organizer for organizing this program. You might have already noticed, today coincides with the date of Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Government of India and the Government of Nepal. That was signed and came into effect on 31st July 1950. That treaty mentions that Nepal and India, they do consider complete sovereignty, territorial integrity and independence of each other. More than that, for me, the most important thing is it begins with acknowledging the ancient ties between Nepal and India. If we go to practical level, that I can say from Nepal's perspective as well as India's perspective, I have extensively traveled India. I have been to as many as 50 universities in India in order to deliver my lectures, speeches, conduct workshops, sometimes supervise their research and so on. From there also, I can say the thing mentioned, ancient ties and the much discussed cultural affinity is lacking in the practical level. For instance, the Indian Foreign Minister, Nepal's Foreign Minister, Nepal's Prime Minister, India's Prime Minister, and even many think tanks in this hall, they may refer Nepal and India as brothers. And the issue of elder and younger I will treat later on. The very concept of brothers to Nepal and India, it is paradoxical. On the one hand, you talk of cultural heritage. You take Bhumi Sukta, how the Bhumi is addressed. Bhumi is Mata. If you go to many Vedic, Buddhist and other texts, the country is mother. From that perspective, if you want to have kinship between Nepal and India, they are sisters, not brothers. If people from Western outlook, Eurocentric paradigm would say that, that would be one thing. But such statements come from people who claim to be the cultural nationalists. Sanskritic Rashtravad, you said that and you don't have knowledge how countries should be addressed. Sisters. And if it comes to the matter of being elder and younger, I can prove, if you come to me, Nepal is much elder than present-day India. So Nepal is elder sister, India is younger sister. And another thing, we have been listening Nepal, India to exploit their commonalities to the optimum level in the changing power configuration, but keeping in view of their cultural oneness. But when think tanks and the, let us say, ambassadors, ministers, they come together on the table for negotiation, for discussion, what they talk about? They talk about strategic partnership, trade partnership, security concerns. Where is the civilizational matters? Where is the civilizational relationship between Nepal and India? The world is heading toward new global order. In fact, new global order is in the making. And that global order would be in terms of civilization. Sooner or later, the polarization would be based on civilizational commonality, that truth. And here, two countries who are inheritor of basic civilization, Nepal and India, they never put civilizational matters in action, only sweet words while meeting, but cunning deeds while negotiating. It is happening so. there is huge trade deficit between Nepal and India. It is a reality. But can Nepal make clear that gap in terms of trade only? No. There are other ways. For instance, it may be a very new thing for you. I have written in my latest book as well, the world is heading toward a kind of Varna system. It is post-industrial society. Here, some countries would be powerful in terms of knowledge, some countries would be in terms of strategic powers, some would be in trade, and some due to their enormous population. Here, countries like Nepal, due to the fact they are inheritor of Vedic civilization, Buddhist civilization, and they are quite superior in terms of epistemology. They can behave like Brahmanas, Brahman Varna in the context of Vedic civilization. And the world now has reached, in a way, pre-Ashwamedh Yajna period. After Ashwamedh Yajna, the borders, they became fluid. But due to UN, various international treaties, more or less, we have static borders. There are minor, let us say, disputes, but largely the states, they have their own clearly defined territory. And in such situation, the European theory of nation-state becomes outdated, even in the West. But here, Nepal and India, maybe another country as well, they are taking insights from nation-state, which define nationality in terms of race, ethnicity, etc. And that is why India may be seeing some ethnic groups more closer, but some other ethnic groups not so closer. It may be so in case of Nepal. If Nepal also wants to play that card, that also would be wrong. So, Nepal, India, and so many countries, even the European countries now, they have become state nations as defined in Vedic tradition. From that perspective, you are not allowed for any kind of micromanagement because that will be repulsive for you as well. India has already experienced the Khalistan experience. And there are counter moves by India and Pakistan for Balochistan and Kashmir. In that context, can Nepal afford? And due to the connection with Nepal, can India, Pakistan, China, and so on afford the outdated European definition of nation-state? No. So, Nepal and India, they have to redefine. They must do it. And while redefining, they can find insights from their common heritage. That is the point I would like to make here, and I would like to conclude here. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. As the title suggests, redefining Nepal-India relations in 21st century, I guess he shares some of the hit some of the sparks about the igniting different kind of discourse.